Alright, hello everybody. Today I want to talk about my problems with the legendaries and my hopefully suggested changes for the legendaries. So, one of the biggest concerns about Legion so far is that, the legendary system's completely RNG, you're never going to be optimal because you can't get your best in slots legendaries, blah 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 blah. And I really don't think that right now is a very big problem, mainly because all the legendaries are, so close together in power level that no matter what legendary you get, you will find a use for it in sort of some situation. And there needs to be a reason. There needs to be disparity between the legendaries. Not every legendary can give you just flat 5% damage. Some of them need to be good for AoE. Some of them need to be, utility ones and whatnot. And that creates an interesting system. So I don't have a problem with the power of the legendaries. I have a problem with the implementation of how you get the legendaries. So one of the biggest problems I find, on my druid is the perfect example. Is that I like to play every spec on the druid. I really like Feral, really like Guardian, really like Balance, really like Resto. Every single spec I want to play. But I know as playing that Resto druid that playing that druid is that I will never be optimal because I can never get suitable legendaries for every single spec. And that is kind of a big problem for me, because if I do ever want to push my druid in as my main into playing playing my druid as a main, is that it's never going to be up to scratch. It's never going to have all the best legendaries for a certain spec. It's never going to either have maybe some legendaries for the spec I want to play. And that is a huge problem when it does come to endgame raiding, because the legendaries are sufficiently powerful, where they are, pretty significant, especially as you're pushing into, say, a mythic raid. So, if I want to play my Resto Druid, right now I have one legendary, which is the Frenzied Regen feat, which are fine for Guardian. They're not the best, but they're not helpful for Resto at all, So it's kind of put me in this situation where, if I ever really want to make the decision about, whether I want to switch to my Druid to play it, it's always going to be, kind of a problem, because I'm never going to have, the pool of legendaries say I have in my Priest, or I'm never going to get, at least one legendary that might be good for playing Resto. So this is a concern for me, and I'm sure it's a concern for a lot of people, especially things like pure DPS classes, where they might just not have legendaries for off specs, and their off specs are never going to be as competitive, or they're always going to have this kind of sour taste in their mouth where it's like, well, I'm an assassination rogue and sub might be kind of better, I might like sub more, but you're never going to really want to play it because you just don't have the legendaries for it. So my suggested change would be simply just to change how you actually get the legendaries. So, we have a pool of, say, 24 legendaries for, your class and spec, for your class, and why not just tie each individual spec legendaries onto its own individual bad luck protection system. Now, this will cause you to get more legendaries, but it will cause you as well to make sure you're working for those legendaries. You're not going to be getting just free legendaries, because there is still, the same, you sort of have the same kind of luck to get them as you would, rolling a new character, which you find a lot of people doing. They just roll new characters because they're not going, they know they're not going to be getting them on their main spec. Alright, so the other concern is with the generic legendary. So we have legendaries that are useful for all specs. So what I suggest to do for these is have the exact same bad luck protection system that we have at the moment, but have it run in parallel with the bad luck protection system you get for your individual specialization on your class. So while you might be working towards getting, say, a legendary for Resto, you might, you just still have that chance to be getting those generic legendaries. So what this will cause is, we'll simply, if you want to put work into getting, your Resto set up, you can set your loot spec to Resto, you can play the game as, a Resto Druid, and then you can work towards being a viable Resto Druid with viable, Resto legendaries. Then say you might want to change to a Boomkin. Well then, instead of having, literally no chance at getting legendaries for a Boomkin, you can have, the same chance you would have as if you just started a new character that you wanted to play as Boomkin. I think this is a completely fair system. It doesn't advantage or disadvantage any classes or specs, and it still has the same kind of flavor where every legendary will still be exciting because you'll still be working to get, sort of a specific range of legendaries. One thing that the legendaries do produce is a lot of content. As much as people, don't like to think that they're doing things to, farm legendaries, having this kind of legendary system, always having that carrot on a stick, always gives you a reason to do content regardless of how trivial it is. And I think that's a really good system. It just kind of punishes people for things they shouldn't be punished for. Creating such powerful items and then only tying them to an individual spec, reduces a lot of the diversity in the game, and that's why a lot of people play the game, is because there is literally hundreds of ways to do things with the different talents, the different specs, and all of that. And I think it's something that can really easily be changed, and it's really just one of those quality of life changes that will help a lot of people out without just pandering to the casual sort of audience. Alright, so the last thing I'd like to touch on is the other suggestion to fix this problem, which is to make the legendaries, each legendary work for each spec. So say if you have the ring for druids, is that ring will then work for every single spec. Now my counterpoint to this would be that it doesn't make the legendaries then exciting. You can't switch to an off spec and be like, oh well, now look at all these options you have, look at all the choices you have, well not choices, but chances you have to get these different things. Whereas if you were to switch that off spec and you already have say 5 of them and you haven't worked to get those 5 individual ones, you're not excited about which ones you could potentially get, or how they would change your spec, and it just as I said, it just reduces a lot of the excitement. So I think having a system where you still would be getting more legendaries, but them being for a individual spec just makes it more exciting, gives you more options, and then also reduces actually gives you a chance to work towards doing different things, and it just overall increases the diversity. Well, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you like some of my options. If you do, please share around this video, and maybe we can get something changed. Alright, well thanks for watching, and have a great day.